In a world where John is angry, where it's 16 minutes past 8 o'clock,
One man is slightly inconvenienced.
and sits alone in his office.
This is the Citadel Cafe.
This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 88, for Wednesday, November 13th, 2013. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I get together to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. We cover everything from movies and television to books, apps, and websites. And joining me this week, I have two very special guests. First off, returning to the show is Mr. Bill Meeks of Meeks Mixed Media. What's going on, sir?
Not too much. Just had a burger, so I'm meat drunk and I'm ready to go.
Nice. And also coming to the mic this week for the first time, my friend John Funk from Underscorefunk Design. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Glad to have you, man.
First time podcaster, long time listener, first time caller.
Awesome.
It's my first day.
Wicked. I'm excited. We've been trying to line you up to come on for quite some time.
It makes me sound far more important than I am.
No, really. This is a very very busy man.
Auspicious.
While we're talking about you as a busy man, since this is your first time on the show, why don't you fill in the listeners about Underscorefunk Design and what it is that you do?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a designer, developer, and illustrator for, like you mentioned, Underscorefunk Design, which I guess a lot of people would refer to as a freelance design business, but I like to consider it a business of one employee. Aside from that, I'm an educator and I teach design at the University of Manitoba's School of Art. And in the free time that I don't really have, I'm a hobbyist musician, furniture maker, and just wearer of many hats. Big fan of hats.
Holy smoke. I'm just now drawing the meeting point between the Wood Whisperer and John Funk, furniture maker. I mean, I knew everybody was friends and part of the Frog Pants Network, but I'm just now seeing how close of a tie you probably have with the content at the Wood Whisperer.
Yeah, well, it all really started off with I think I was listening to This Week in Tech, and Mark was presenting his gadget station, and I was like, you know what? There's something about this guy. I try to sort of hone my gut in being able to sense if I'm going to resonate with another sort of personality or something like that. Because sometimes you can kind of just get this feeling that, people are about the same sort of thing or you're sort of cut of the same cloth. And I was like, you know what, I should just go check out his site. And I went there and I saw he had like the live stream of his shop and whatnot, and started watching some of his videos. And I basically approached him and said, like, hey, I'm deriving a lot of value from watching your videos. If you need anything, let me know. I'd be more than happy to lend a hand and help you out with things. And that sort of just blossomed into a long-time working relationship, which I think has been going on for 3-4 years now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what are like the main, I guess, services that you find yourself doing these days? Like what tends to be trending, I guess, in design for requests and stuff?
Oh, I mean, it ranges all over the board. I'm doing a lot more web development these days than I used to. I mean, it could be the nature of web development just being a little bit more time intensive than design and illustration. But, one day I'll be doing, or for 1 week or whatever, I'll be doing an annual report for some sort of international organization and things like that. And then it's working on a website, and then a poster comes in, and someone needs a banner stand, and then meeting with another client about an identity package, and it's just kind of all over the board.
Yeah, it's so true of freelance anything. Like you really have to have your spoon in a bunch of different pots, in order to kind of have all these different income streams all kind of meet together and form the company of one, like you said earlier.
Yeah, well, I think that's definitely it. is developing the income streams and then being able to have sort of like if you've got enough of them piling together, it sort of gives you the momentum that you need to be a little bit more aggressive in trying some more interesting things or taking on some projects that you might, that might feel a little daunting, but as a result, will really force you to grow. So, so far it's been fantastic for me, and all the business that I get is from word of mouth, and yeah, it's been nuts and awesome, and I feel blessed, and it's crazy.
That's great, man. I mean, and having just finished like a con this weekend, as good as Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff can be, word of mouth, whether it's from someone directly emailing or referring you or whatever, maybe it's at a holiday party and they give a business card. It's still, to me, I see way more results from meeting people in person or networking in person at events than Twitter and Facebook. I mean, they get you traffic, but how much of that is through traffic? Like how many people actually bite and purchase or hire, from all that noise? And I know all that kind of stuff is measurable, but I feel like the noise to income ratio from social media, for me, tends to be a lot lower than when I have a chance to talk to somebody about what I do in person.
Yeah, and it's so hard. It's so hard to kind of measure clicks versus dollars coming in.
Well,
too,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bill, you're an entrepreneur as well, right? You do stuff from home.
Yeah, I don't. I was in the freelance game for about 5 years there. I haven't been for about the past year. I got one of those corporate jobs, but I still work from home.
Oh,
So,
well, there are some similarities, to juggling your time and being able to take because you still do a lot of personal projects and stuff like that, right?
oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, really, my day job it's structured just like my freelancing was. I generally, I check in with my boss a couple times a week, but generally I just get a stack of videos they want me to make, and I make them, and then I move on to something else. But yeah, it's a interesting trying to juggle it, especially with the independent projects I've been doing lately. It's very hard to be like, okay, this is the time of my day job, and then this time is for me, and trying to separate those out while still, I don't know, tweeting out about something that I want to get out there in the middle of the day when I'm supposed to be working.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, I've been struggling too lately with, trying to balance the whole client work versus personal stuff versus trying to find more client work. Like, I mean, as any kind of, freelancer knows, you have so many balls in the air, or even if it's not freelance, even if you do have a full-time thing, but you are able to work from home. I mean, for anybody that has, a home to manage or, kids to manage and stuff like that, it becomes always a juggling act with your time. But speaking of personal projects, from Bill, this is a perfect opportunity to make good on a promise I made last week, which is to talk to you about your new personal project, which is Boy Den of Thieves. So
Yes.
first, this is the first time I've actually had a chance to talk to you since this all went down. Congrats!
Okay.
You've got a
Oh.
book.
I know.
Holy
it's a
crap.
real freaking book. I actually I got the first physical copy in the mail last week, like the proof copy, and I was like, holy crap, this is an actual book. It's a book. I forget what the cursing rules are.
Man.
But,
So I'm just going to go ahead and assume the answer to my next question was this is your first novel.
this is my first novel. Yes, I've written tons of screenplays in the past, different, shorter pieces of prose, even poetry, songs, that sort of thing. But I've never written something this big before.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, clocked in at about 300 pages.
That's
So,
wow. That's you can't tell that from the pictures that I've seen online. Speaking of, if anybody listening wants to go to dogboyadventures.com, you can check out any number of ways to find Boy Den of Thieves and how you can get your hands on it, or how you can get your Kindles hands on it, or your iPads hands on it. There's lots of
Nook,
different options.
Kobo,
Nook, Kobo. It's crazy. Before I've got so many questions. I guess first, obviously, we know where it's your first book. What is the feeling like? How does it? How much satisfaction did you get from like completing this project from start to finish, and then having the physical thing in your hand? Like, how does that make you feel?
having the physical thing in my hand was incredibly satisfying. What was a little the opposite was hitting that publish button and like tweeting it out. It's public and everything, because like I hit the button and I was like, there, finally, it's done. I can rest. And I was like, oh crap! I just put out 300 pages of stuff out of my head out there into the ether, and I am sure some psychologist is going to come back and say, "Hey, you're crazy. You're absolutely nuts." I only had to get about halfway through the book before I realized you were nuts.
Well, we can start with TCC fan in the chat room because she is 2/3 of the way through the book.
Oh, really? Really? How are you liking it so far?
There's usually a little bit of a chat delay, so we'll get her feedback in just a minute. But no, I think it's awesome that you've been able to do this. So did this start off as like a NaNoWriMo project, or was it something that you've been working on for like years, kind of as a passion project in the background?
The latter, actually. I would actually date the project. I'd have to get up and looking through my files to be sure, but the concept of Dog Boy and a kid superhero in a really crappy costume dates back about 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was originally a short story called Primitive Hearts that I wrote in my college creative writing class, actually. And I really liked the concept. And then Marvel, back in, I think, 2004, they did a line called, it was the Epic Comics line. It was kind of like their independent label, and they were doing open submissions. So I went and I converted the short story into a comic book script. I sent it in. We had some meetings. They gave me like $50 or something to hold the concept for 6 months, and then they never did anything with it. We had a meeting, fell through. And then I had to wait like a year before I could do anything with it again. And by that time, I had moved out to LA, and I was pursuing a career as a screenwriter. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I rewrite this as like a big, epic, summer blockbuster superhero movie kind of thing? And that became the screenplay, The Fantabulous Adventure of Dog Boy, which was basically the same story that's in the book. But, much more, 110-page, like real quick summer blockbuster action movie kind of thing. And then I got some interest in that, had meetings with that, got some other deals going because of that. And it also got optioned for a little bit. So it was on hold for about 2 years to where I couldn't touch it. And then it finally got released. And I was like, you know what I should do with this, because no one's going to make it because it's going to be too expensive for an unknown property. What I should do is I should either do an independent film or I should write a book with it. And then I promptly sat on it for like 3, 4, 5 years, got married, had kids, didn't touch it. And then last year for NaNoWriMo, I decided I was going to write the novel, and I did. And
Nice.
here we are. So yeah, it has a history.
Wow, so like all of the above.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So did you find that the over the 10 years, the bend in technology and accessibility for authors to is it self-published or is it published by somebody else?
It's self-published.
Self-published. So self-published. I mean, you now have the ability to do this. I mean, if you needed to, you could do a Kickstarter. So all of these different things were accessible to you. Do you find like the time was just sort of right in terms of like, the families and the kids settling down, your free time being a little bit more manageable, in addition to all of the technology available to publish the book?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, when I first came out with this concept, basically the options that, that original short story, the options available to me were to, send out to, a few kind of like little local literary magazines or maybe some sort of like national college level magazine. But that was pretty much, the only options. There was, I mean, I could have thrown it up on a website, but who was going to see it in 2003, 2004, right? But now we have this wonderful, the Kindle platform mainly has been the big driver for it, but, iBooks and Nook and everything else to where I could literally, a lot of people, and this has been very frustrating when I've been looking for advice on how to do this. A lot of people, they'll just go and they'll write, 50 pages of crap and they'll put it out as a book the same day. Like they'll have a book published in the afternoon and be selling copies that evening. Which, in one sense is bad for the consumer because there's a bunch of crap out there. But it's also really good for legitimate content creators like me, people who are actually trying to put real stuff out into the world instead of trying to make a quick buck, to where, I can I can literally go and sit down and, hit a button and I've published, although, I'm such a perfectionist that it was like 3 days trying to get all the formatting right and tweaking everything and making it as perfect as I possibly could.
Right. Now, so how friendly is it to for your time to have to publish on Kindle, iBooks, Nook, and Kobo? Like, is it like the same process 4 times over?
Well, it actually wasn't too bad. What I did is I did the main manuscript that I brought out of Scrivener after my 3rd or 4th draft and was sending back and forth with the editor and everything. I took that and I formatted it exactly how I wanted it for the physical book. And then and I guess some people have more problems with this than others. What I did for Kindle is I just uploaded that version, to CreateSpace, which is who does the physical book, and then they sent it over to Kindle, and they did a conversion, and I downloaded it, checked it out on my iPhone. It was perfect. And then for all the other stores, I did, because I already had a Kindle account set up from a little collection of like short stories and poems and stuff I published years ago.
Cool.
But for all the other stores, I used a site called Draft to Digital. I guess a lot of people use Smashwords for this too. But basically, what I did was I took that version I made for the physical book, stripped out most of the formatting, all the graphics, and just cleaned it up a little bit, and then I just uploaded it to Draft to Digital, and they exported versions for Nook and Kobo, and they would have done Kindle and stuff too. But since I already had the account, I figured why bring another middleman to take 2% into it. For that, but for like iBooks and Nook and stuff like that, you have to have a middleman. But overall, a pretty smooth process. So
very cool. Did you look at iBooks Author at all, or does that limit your publication?
I didn't really for one, because I think that's a lot more for advanced features from what I've heard anyway. I could be wrong on that, but for like doing like multimedia stuff, and I wasn't
textbooks and stuff.
Yeah, and I was really just concentrating on getting, the text right. I figure I don't know if someone ever wanted an author's commentary or something that could be added later. Right. I doubt anyone would.
Yeah, so because I'm looking at iBooks Author seriously for a digital version of Starcross Volume 1 to try and have an electric version available, because there is none. There's just the physical copy right now. So I'm trying to figure out what might be the best platform to work on that on. So digital publishing is just always dancing around in the back of my brain whenever I have 30 seconds to myself before something else pops up.
I know Brian Brushwood, for his Scam School books, he used a service called Vook, which I guess has a really good authoring tool for more multimedia type ebooks that you might want to check out. Because I know he did all that kind of crazy fancy stuff where you click on a trick and it would open up the Scam School episode, or there would be commentary from him and all that kind of stuff. So you could probably incorporate, I don't know, sketches, things like that.
Well, that's the thing, is that, like, I've got a lot of this extra material from all the work that I've done. I mean, some of it is actually video of me drawing. They're not really high def, but I don't think they would be bad on an iPad. Like, I think they might actually add a little bit. I don't think anybody wants to watch, an hour and a half of me inking a strip, but I could certainly, time lapse the drawing and, do some voiceover stuff like that. But no, Vook sounds cool. I'll have to check that out. We do have a verdict from the chat room, by the way. TCC fan is a fan of Boy Den of Thieves. She says that, she's tearing through it. If she didn't have other stuff to do, she would have been finished already. So,
and she doesn't think I'm crazy, which is the really important part.
Well, hey, well, she didn't say either way. So
this is true.
I'm pointing the finger at Molly now, which I shouldn't do. She's always a constant in the chat room. She's our true north here at the Citadel Cafe. I guess the only other question I have left is that, I mean, having not yet been able to pick up Dog Boy and really get into it for myself, what's your elevator pitch? Like, what would you say is the gist of the story, and who's it for?
Well, how I initially was describing it, and this is, the classic "this concept meets this concept" explanation of it. I was originally describing it as Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist meets Stanley's Spider-Man, but someone who was reviewing it over on Reddit a couple days ago came up with another one of those that I thought actually probably worked a little better. And in keeping with the cover art, too, the inspiration for the cover art, they said it was Hardy Boys meets Kick-Ass. which I thought was pretty darn accurate because
Nice.
yeah, it definitely. I tried to. It's basically a story about this 13-year-old kid named Bronson Black, who his parents pass away, and he's left to his uncle Randolph, who lives in the big city, Cultus City, and he moves up there with him, and he has to end up getting a job, navigating school, and he also has a precognitive power that was left to him by his father, along with a trunk of magic tricks, which he uses to fight crime as Dog Boy. But it's basically it's structured like a classic 50s or 60s boys adventure, like Hardy Boys, Encyclopedia Brown, even to a degree Nancy Drew and different books like that, to where it's kind of like this kid going through an adult world, seeing the adult world, seeing people committing crimes, doing this, that, and the other things kids really shouldn't be exposed to or around, and handling it deftly. So if you ever, I think it's really, if you ever like that kind of book, those kind of adventure books, you'd like this both because it's one of those books, and I think it does a pretty decent job in satirizing that concept.
Nice.
And really, if if you like a good superhero adventure, or if you like Charles Dickens and that kind of like working class, kind of criminal underground kind of vibe, I think you'd really like it too. Yeah, the main conflict of the book is there's a group of criminals who live underneath the city in the subway system called the Guild of Thieves. And after Dogboy stops them a few times, their leader Andrus gets he gets a little peeved off, and he also kind of gets interested in this boy who seems to be besting his best thieves, and he might try and convince him to join the Guild of Thieves, and it goes on from there.
Very cool. Well, I'm on board. That sounds like a good read for what is becoming a very chilly Canadian winter. I was out running errands earlier today, and I was just like, I cannot wait to get home and in my warm apartment and get on a podcast and talk to some people about some cool stuff, because the bus was just freezing and miserable. I'm just like, ugh. Normally I like the cold, but I dressed for a sunny, cool afternoon, and then the sun went down, and it was a freezing night coming home tonight. So looking forward to getting into to Dogboy later on. So for anybody that's interested, you can go to dogboyadventures.com and pick up a copy of the book, because it sounds awesome. As for me, the last week was spent prepping and executing Hal-Con 2013. I'm going to keep this pretty short and sweet, because there's just way too much to get into, and I'm going to do a full-length blog post about my experience at Hal-Con. Short and sweet equals amazing. I had so much fun meeting readers, some that have been following me since last year at Hal-Con, others that have no idea who I was, and you could tell by the looks on their faces when they walked by my guest table and looked at the sign, and they kind of go, "Huh, who's this guy?" But I was able to sell and sign and sketch in a ton of books this weekend, which is incredibly satisfying as an artist and an author, and to have those go to people that have no idea who I am is an even greater pat on the back for what I do. So thank you to everybody that either came up to say hi at the table, picked up a book, or attended one of the panels that I was on, of which I did a ton. If I didn't get a chance to talk to you, or if you missed me, then hit me up on Twitter at Joel Duggan, or drop me a line via joelduggan.com, and hopefully we can touch base. I met a lot of artists, a lot of people that were in Artist Alley that neither one of us had more time to go to the other's table and talk shop. So if you are an aspiring artist out there and you have questions, then feel free, including you, Owen, who didn't come by my table. I'm assuming that you and your mother got distracted. There's this really nice, I want to say her name was Lisa. I apologize if I forget. But it was a mother and her son who was 13, 14, and wanted to learn about making comics and stuff like that, especially web comics. And they had a short chat with me after the panel, and they were supposed to come by the table for a longer one, and I never did see them, because I was all over the place at Hal-Con. But the highlight for me at the con was meeting Pete Williams, who, for those of you who don't know, is the creator of Undergrads, the animated television series.
Okay.
Yeah, which I watched going to university, because, I mean, give or take a year or two, I think Pete and I are about the same age. So he was just in the industry before I was, because I was doing like a 4-year, degree and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, Pete he's a gem. Like, it was so much fun talking with him and his wife Sarah, at the Stargazer Soiree, which is kind of like a formal event they do on Saturday night. Jocelyn and I spent at least an hour talking with them. They were super nice. They came by the table the next morning. I wanted to give them a book, and he refused. he insisted on buying one, which was very, very sweet. But then the fun story was that, you're having this really cool kind of laid back conversation with another creator, and we're talking geeky stuff, and his wife Sarah is into some other things that are geeky, so she and Jocelyn are getting along great. And so I get home, I'm just like, you feel like you just spent an evening talking with a friend, and then you're just like, no, I just met Pete Williams. Like, holy crap, right? So I go to Twitter, and the tweet is, I just met Pete Williams. That was amazing. It was so fun to bloop. Twitter pops up, and it's Pete Williams saying, Joel, it was great to meet you. Had a lot of fun. Can't wait to check out Starcross. I'm just like, he beat me to it. Son of a bitch. So of course I, reciprocated, but it was such a great, event to meet people that are creative and doing that sort of stuff. So that's my Hal-Con story. I'll elaborate on all the other cool panels and stuff that I did on the blog later on this week. And if you did happen to miss me at the table, I was doing free sketches in Starcross Volume 1 because it was the anniversary of the book. And I will hold that sale if you can send me a legit picture of you and your Hal-Con 2013 badge or day pass. I will do the same for you because there was a lot of time when I was not able to be at the signing table. So if you missed me, I apologize. And I will give you the same treatment if you were at Hal-Con. And you can send me that photo, then I will send you an artist edition for the cover price. So that is it for my Hal-Con, I guess, podcast dump. There will be a blog dump at a later date. But let's get into talking some TV, movies, and video, because John has been patiently, quietly waiting for us to stop yammering. But John is seeing.
I'm loving the show. It's a good show.
It's like, poke, you're on the show, remember?
A+, 5 stars.
Well,
he's the number one fan of this episode. Also, he's on this episode.
Yeah, well, there you go. Like, John, I got a 5-star review from John. Like, I really liked episode 88. I can't put my finger on it, but there was just something about that show that just...
Co-hosts they're shockingly charismatic.
Yeah, struck a chord with me, right? Well, you were to the theater recently, sir, and you've seen a movie that I am dying to go see, and so spoiler free. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I like to stick clear of spoilers, especially when it's talking about one of my favorite sci-fi books of all time, Ender's Game. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card is basically the story of a kid who gets drafted into this, I guess, space military academy kind of thing. And I'm not really going to go too much more into it than that, because most of the book is sort of in his head. And they've been trying to make this movie for a long time, and Orson Scott Card has basically been on record saying, I'm really concerned, are we going to be able to find the young talent that is going to be able to play Ender Wiggin, who's the protagonist in the narrative? And because that character has to carry this story, and the story is so much in Ender's mind because he's such a clever, intuitive character that it's very hard to present that on the big screen without it feeling like really sort of awkward exposition. And I think the movie, nailed it in terms of showing just these beautiful little turning points. It wasn't too over the top regarding any of these. It stayed true to the story arc and the character arcs and kind of had just enough in there. Some of the subplots got a little downplayed or summarized, but I didn't find that was a problem. I think if you're interested in seeing a clever sci-fi movie that has integrity, go see it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Nice. My sister has seen it. I want to say even opening evening, but she's not a fan. Like, she didn't read the book, so she went into it just having an older brother that was into sci-fi. She grew up liking Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. She loved the movie. She thought it was fabulous. She didn't have any kind of comparison though. So she just kind of went into it clean, having never heard of it before. So if it stands up to someone who's a fan and kind of like the general public, and Andrea's geeky, but she's not like over the top like me. That sounds awesome. Like Jocelyn's a huge fan. She's read the books. I haven't, although I've heard of it. Like I have I guess kind of like the sideways, knowledge of what the story is, like the gist of it. Although I don't know the end or anything like that. So I'm really curious to see it as well. It sounds awesome.
I'm a bad geek too. I haven't read it at all. I was actually on my friend Paul. He does a podcast called The Book Guys, and they were talking about it. I guess what they suggested to me was, and they're sending me a copy of it. There's an audio drama version of Ender's Game called, I think it's, what is it? It's Ender's Game Alive or something like that, but it's officially endorsed by Orson Scott Card. It was kind of like he went and rewrote it all as an audio drama, and he calls it the definitive version of the work, or in his opinion, the definitive version of the work. Yeah, so I'm gonna check that out, and then I'm gonna see the movie. But that's what their suggestion was. I'm trying to remember. Was it Ender's Game Alive or what?
Ender's Game Alive, the full cast audio play is what Amazon kind of spit out at me after a quick Google search.
There is a pretty good audiobook, eh?
Yeah. Geez, the audiobook is only like $10.
Yeah, in fact, that's how I quote unquote read it, because I mean, I'm just so busy doing stuff that I unfortunately don't have a lot of time to just sort of sit down and read. And I'm also partially dyslexic, which is great for setting type because I see the negative spaces, but does make reading somewhat aggravating, save for if it's, on my Kobo or whatever, where I can increase the leading so that the lines actually make sense. Mm-hmm. But the audiobook is fantastic. And if you pick it up, definitely get the next book in the series called Ender's Shadow. It's the same story as Ender's Game, told from the perspective of one of his sort of contemporaries at the Academy.
Jocelyn has read all of the books. Is there 3 total?
No, there's like 8.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah, they kind of go off in different arcs, though. There's like a bunch of maps online that say like, well, read it this way, and there's like the chronological order they were written, or the chronological order that they happen in the universe, or this other order. It gets crazy.
Yeah, she's read them all. So I'm pretty sure the last one that she read was the 8th. And she was pushing through it, I want to say earlier this spring or whenever the first teaser trailer came out for the movie and she knew it was coming out. She was already reading, but then she really made sure that she was long finished before any other trailers or anything else came out for the movie. Right. And she found the last book really complex. Like it was not a quick kind of sit down and blast through it sort of book. There was a lot of stuff to kind of take in. So it strikes me as from what I've heard about it outside, it strikes me as a simple story to get into, but a complicated story to kind of really dive into. Like it's you can get, the more that you read into it, the more that you can get out of it, if that makes any sense.
Well, the important thing to keep in context here is that, and this isn't a spoiler, but I think it helps you understand the nature of the narrative, is, and I might be a little off on these details, but I believe it was written while Orson Scott Card's brother was drafted for Vietnam.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, so the story is relatively straightforward, but the arguments it presents are, I think, clever in the way that they're presented, and they're very interesting things to ask yourself about. Like, where do I stand on this? Who are why are they using kids? And that's sort of the I guess critique that I got from one of the people that I went to go see it with, is they said, well, it's kind of weird because, it's sort of like, why are kids in this military camp? And it's kind of like, well, that's the thing, right? Is these kids are fighting this, or training to fight in this war that's supposed to protect their innocence.
Yeah.
Right, and to protect, tomorrow. And it's sort of like, what's the point of really doing this if, your future are the people who are the soldiers?
Yeah, I like books that ask tough questions like that.
And it's handled very elegantly in the film. And it's just, I think the cast was great. the way that it's like the set design or the structure of it is very concise. So if you like movies that kind of feel like a play in that they have a sort of limited set of locations, limited set of characters, but very complex interactions between the characters, then I think you'll really enjoy it.
Wow. Yeah. No. I mean, all of it sounds great.
Hopefully, I'm
Yeah.
not talking it up too much. I was expecting so little, and it struck the chords that I kind of wanted it to strike. So I was just like, yeah, it's kind of popcorny, but at the same time, it's got like a little more to it than just being like, hey, that's really beautiful, or these are really striking performances by these young actors. And I think that's sort of one of the real high points of it is these young actors just nail it.
Yeah. Well, the young guy that plays Ender, he's the guy from Hugo, is he not?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
hard
that's
because
what I
they're
heard.
when they start filming them so young. I mean, in between two movies, the kids age 4 years. Between 12 and 16, and you're just like, whoa, wait a minute, who are you again? And they look
Yeah.
completely different. So, Bill, do you have plans to go see Ender's Game?
Well, like I said, once I get through that audio drama, like they had suggested, I definitely want to go see it because the book is considered a classic, and I feel bad that I actually have never familiarized myself more with it, just because I know how revered it is, and regardless of how you feel about the creator's viewpoints in the political realm, it's one of those works that's going to be talked about for another 100 years easy.
Yeah.
So I should probably get off my butt and do something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like there are so many books that are like that. Like, I mean, this is a huge one that's sort of like I guess thrown around and with some weight because it's like 1,000+ pages. Is Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, which is like extremely opinionated. Definitely take it with a grain of salt. But I think books like this and narratives like this are so important because they offer us these really interesting perspectives that we can sort of reflect upon, and I think that's hugely important. I mean, that's the beauty of art, right? Is that we don't have to agree with it, but it's fantastic that other people have other opinions.
Yeah, and just to speak a little to the boycott too, it's a situation where a lot of people were saying, boycott it because he feels that way. So some sort of that viewpoint might have made its way into the book. I say great. I mean, regardless of how you feel about somebody's viewpoint, exposing yourself on a very deep level by, digging into their art or something is a great way to understand a viewpoint, even if you don't agree with it. And to shutting out opposing viewpoints, that down that way lies madness, and their innovation stops. If you don't take the time to consider other viewpoints, both good and bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I can use a webcomics as an example. I mean, it has the same problem that you mentioned earlier, Bill, with everybody being able to publish books via the Kindle. Anybody can start making a webcomic that is both good and bad. That means that people that were unable to reach an audience because of publisher hoops or syndicate editor lines they had to try to cross are able to, in a very simple fashion, reach an audience. It frees up the type of comics that people can make. It frees up all kinds of creativity and opinions. And on Comics Coast to Coast, obviously we interview a lot of people. All of the hosts kind of generate a list of people we'd like to interview. But we all have very different tastes in comics. But all of us like talking to creators. So it's always a very interesting experience for me when I'm reading a webcomic that either the art or the subject matter of the comic is either not usually my thing, is really not my thing, or possibly is even offensive to me in one way or another. And then slugging through and reading all of the content and then being able to form my own opinion or see maybe disagreeing with the author or the creator, but then still seeing where they stand and what has led them to where they are. And the cool thing about it is that then you go on the podcast and you're thinking, oh crap, like I don't know if I really like this person's work. How are we going to interview them? And it ends up being a really interesting conversation 9 times out of 10. I like the interviews that we all, love the person's work already and we can't wait to talk to them. But I still really enjoy, as a personal experience, interviewing people that you end up liking them as people because they're always, I mean, I have yet to meet, a webcomic artist that we interview that's a dick. Like they all tend to be really nice people, especially when they're invited to be interviewed. But it's so funny to talk to people where, like their art and the way that they're expressing themselves is really kind of going against the grain. But then to meet them, they're still very, PR and like they have the either a sweet demeanor or they have, a certain way of expressing themselves or a certain way of explaining themselves that make you, again, not maybe change your mind, but at least respect their platform.
Yeah. And I mean, I think for me personally, that's something. Being able to approach things like that is something that came out of me growing up in a small town in West Virginia. Because I know a lot of people who were really good people who had really not good opinions that you kind of had to deal through if you wanted to talk to anyone at all in town. So you had to deal with you had to at least be able to accept controversial opinions from other people, and like I said, I think that's very important. And to shut yourself off from that is just, I don't know, isolating your thought process. It's bad for you.
Yeah. Well, Bill, what has been on your silver screen this week?
Pretty much all I've really had time for is Once Upon a Time and Thor 2.
Ooh, which do we want to talk about?
Both
Thor
Disney
2.
properties.
That's right. They both are Disney properties, aren't they?
Yes, indeed. But yeah, actually, I could talk a little. Did you guys see Thor 2?
I haven't.
No.
But I've heard good things.
I love the first one. I mean, so many people just were not digging it, but like, I don't know. It's just a fun movie,
Mm. See, I had the same complaint about the second one as I did about the first one, which is I thought the love story with Natalie Portman felt really forced and really quick, and it kind of exacerbated the situation in the second one because she becomes such an integral part of everything going on with, this isn't a spoiler, it's the subtitle, with the Dark World. But it very, very comic booky. Like there were actually segments of it that very much reminded me of Crisis on Infinite Earths, if you guys have ever read that Maxi series from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some very Crisis on Infinite Earths moments. There were a lot of, I will just say, portal jokes that I thought were very well done, like stuff that jokes you would see in Portal involving that technology in the movie that I thought was really good. And of course, Asgard, as ever, was just beautiful.
Yeah,
So,
I've always really enjoyed the visuals for Asgard and how Marvel and I guess Disney now has kind of brought that to the big screen. And I do remember those little like jokey moments in the trailer where I think it's Natalie Portman where that's explaining like, the very fabric of the universe will be unraveled, or some kind of line that you can only fly in a comic book movie.
oh yeah,
I mean, go ahead.
I think I said on Twitter to my friend Jaime, he was asking how I liked it, and I was like, that movie was so comic book, I got a paper cut.
Nice. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I mean, I find that some of the reason I don't stay up to date with a lot of modern comics, especially superhero stuff. I still love Superman, I still love Batman, but I find them so campy, like to the point where I don't remember why I was into them when I was younger. Like they just seem so, I don't know,
on the nose.
Yeah, they don't really disguise themselves to be anything more than just like selling, cool splash pages, like whereas other books like Saga and Fables and other things like that tend to draw me in more lately. But I really enjoyed the first Thor movie. I know that some people have been saying like you get the same thing out of this movie that you did out of the first movie. So if you hated the first, you're probably not going to like the second. But if you like the first, you're going to enjoy the second because it moves the story forward, but still delivers the same sort of 1-2 punch, that you wanted. And I know a lot of. It's funny. I've got a lot of female friends online that are just nuts for Loki. whether, I'm not sure whether it's the actor that they find handsome or whether they just enjoy the character so much, but for whatever reason, they really enjoy Loki.
Well, what's his name? What is it? Tom Hiddleston. He's just so darn charismatic. You know, he's one of just those smooth British actors that gets everybody, man or woman.
Yeah,
you know, after him.
Yeah, I mean, as a cartoonist, I call these kind of people they have the pointy smile. If that makes any sense to you guys, they just have that grin that's just like it's like I know you just told me something about maiming me, but you're still really charming right now. Like this is not supposed to be the way it flies. I will also watch Natalie Portman in anything. That's just me.
Even Phantom Menace.
Yep. Yeah. Still Phantom Menace. That's fine. It's her. Maybe she's the only good thing about it, as a matter of fact. So, well, there's the pod race. That's fun.
Yes.
Yeah, there are those things. So for me, I really haven't been watching a whole lot, and in the interest of moving the podcast forward, I'm just going to save my video pick for something a little bit later. But I have had some time to sit down with some books. I've had the pleasure of meeting a cartoonist friend of mine, Doug Savage, and I was able to get one of his books, which he kindly bestowed upon me as a gift. He was in town for Hal-Con, not to be a guest at the con, but he was attending because he and his wife are looking to move out this way, potentially. And so he gave me a copy of Savage Chickens, a survival kit for life in the coop. And for those of you who don't know, you can find out a lot of the stuff at savagechickens.com. Doug draws his cartoons on 3x3 Post-it notes, real size. And the book, and the book has reproduced these at the size that they were drawn. So there's no manipulation. You can actually even see the shadow from where the Post-it note was scanned. And they are priceless. I'm only about halfway through it now, but there's all kinds of different crazy things about, office humor and, being cooped up and that kind of stuff.
Did you tweet this one about the polar bear out earlier?
Yes, I did.
Saw it earlier.
Yeah, that was earlier. Yeah, it's like polar bear and roller bear. Like just it's a single panel strip, so it's a kind of Far Side humor, that sort of stuff. But one of my favorite strips from the first few pages of the book is a work, choose your own adventure Post-it note. And all it is a 3x3 grid. So there's 9 squares, and it's just a bunch of arrows, and it's the same drawing 8 times over of just sitting at a computer working. So it's up, down, left, right, sideways. Doesn't matter which way you go. You're just work. Really, really clever sense of humor. It's very well done. And speaking with him about his process this weekend was really cool because I had the opportunity to go to dinner with him and his wife. And he doesn't pencil anything. He just draws straight ink to post it, and if he messes up, he's got to start again because the Post-it notes are not strong enough to be erased. Like if you screw up and you have to erase it, you just destroy it. Like they crinkle. Like there's all these kind of problems. So it's a very it takes the off the cuff humor of the strip and makes it even more so in almost like a performance art where he has to do the planning for the Post-it note cartoon. I mean, it's really, really fun stuff.
There's almost even if you're not watching him do it, there's almost a live element to the cartoons even existing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's there's you can find this book, I believe, on his site, and there's also for those of you that are using electric devices to read, there are a number of ebooks available on his website as well. So that's savagechickens.com. And I believe, not this week, but next week, we're going to be interviewing him on Comics Coast to Coast. So yeah, should be fun. John, anything gracing your nightstand?
Yeah, the stuff that graces my nightstand is all in audio form going into my ear holes. One of the things that I like to do as I'm sort of nodding off, trying to not think about work, is listening to audiobooks. And the Audible iPad or iPhone app has a sleep timer on it. So I can basically set it for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, and listen to stuff. And lately I've been listening to this epic fantasy series called the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. Man, it's awesome. This guy can write. I believe he was the editor for the fellow who, I think was it Peter Jordan? No, that's the Canadian TV guy. Something Jordan. Who did the Wheel of Time series, which is one of the most...
Robert Jordan.
Robert Jordan, there you go. Anyway, so I believe Robert Jordan passed away, and Brandon Sanderson wrote the last few books in that series, and then did the Mistborn series and started this other one that's like going to be a 10-book series called the Stormlight Archive, and the first one is called The Way of Kings. In any event, the Mistborn series has like superpowers fueled by burning metals that you ingest, set in like weird medieval surreal fantasy time, and it's fantastic. Just
Cool.
get it. The audiobook is great. The books are great. Just pick it up. If you like fantasy, you'll love it.
You know what? I should totally follow your suggestion because I'm very familiar with Brandon Sanderson. I've never read any of his books, but he puts out a ton of great lectures on novel writing and marketing and self-publishing and everything on YouTube. And
Really?
he also has a really good writing podcast called Writing Excuses that he does with two other authors. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but it's a really good podcast. So, he's been a really good resource for me as I've been writing the book and everything. I guess I should probably get around to reading one of his. So,
Oh man, you're just gonna like chew through it. It's it's this tricky thing of like books take a long time to get through, but all the best stories are in books. You know.
I thoroughly enjoyed reading Game of Thrones via audiobook, and I mean I have the same issue that you do, John. Is that I've got limited time, and I have the advantage of being an artist. I can read a book and draw at the same time. I
Yep.
can't write, but I can certainly like ink a comic with an audiobook going, and I did that for quite a while when I was consuming Game of Thrones series on audiobooks, and I almost prefer them. There are rare occasions where even a very good book is read by someone that I just don't like the sound of their voice, and I can't do that. I tend to have to flip back and go to a paper or a digital version for that. But
Yeah.
I do really like audio stuff. I read one, and I know I've recommended it on the show quite a while ago, but it's a Star Wars novel. It's like the Rise of Darth Vader, and it's almost like an audio play where they include blaster fire, John Williams music, lightsaber sounds, all that kind of stuff, and it's brilliant. Like it just being such a huge fan of the Star Wars films, like you can see all that stuff play out in your head, when you're listening to this new adventure, with the added sound effects, and it's like I can really see the appeal of all the old audio plays like that my dad used to grow up listening to, like The Shadow and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
right on. Well, for me, I guess we can dive right into the internet minute here, and this was something I was going to share earlier on, but it's just a short video. It's only about 10 to 12 minutes, and what it is an interview with Glenn Keane. For those of you who don't know, Glenn Keane is an animator at Disney. He was, I believe, he left last year, but he is a force in the animation industry. I mean, he's responsible for all kinds of things over the last, I want to say 30 or 40 years in the animation industry. And he was interviewed by the people that put together CTN, which is the Creative Talent Network Expo, which is happening actually right now in California, or soon to be, probably this weekend. And it is a really cool opportunity to listen to Glenn Keane talk about, quote unquote, the industry, what he finds is so interesting about where it is now, how many artists and how many animators are out in the animation industry now. Because it's not just art, like animators. There's like designers and modelers, and there's so many different things that are happening, and it's such a crazy cool perspective for somebody that has a real balance to his view. Like he's not some get off my lawn sort of guy. Like he is just so excited to walk through the expo floor and take an hour to get 30 meters, because he's just meeting, an artist from Mexico and an artist from Spain and an artist from China and, an artist from 2 blocks away. And he's just like enamored by so many people that are so passionate about animation and cartooning and illustration and all that kind of stuff. And it was like a love letter to the industry from his point of view. It's a very cool CTNX promotional video on Vimeo. So I'll have the link to that in the show notes. But that is my pick. I'm also very jealous of all my Twitter friends that are at CTN. So it's not in the budget this year, but soon at some point I plan to go. Hopefully. Bill, what about you? What's your pick this week?
Okay, this video I've been completely obsessed with for the past week. It's from the YouTube channel Scott Bradley Loves Ya. It's basically he does period covers of modern day songs, like he did a Miley Cyrus song in the style of a 1920s like radio performance, and he did this. I've never actually. I still have successfully avoided the actual song. A song called Royals by, I guess it's called. Lord is the artist, but they do a cover version of it with this sad clown, the sad singing clown named Puddles, and he has a voice like Tom Jones, and I don't know what the actual version of the Royals song sounds like, but this cover I've been listening to nonstop for the past week. I'm completely obsessed with it. I'm convinced it has the answers to life, the universe, and everything within it. So,
Nice.
And if nothing else, it turned me on to Puddles the Clown, which he's totally awesome. And he's been around here in Atlanta a couple times this past week, but I've never been able to get out to go meet him because, kids and whatnot. But definitely check it out.
Wow. No, it looks like quite a production.
Oh yeah. And that YouTube channel is worth a subscribe anyway. A lot of great covers, a lot of musically very good covers. If you're into music or you're a musician, he's kind of Scott Bradley is kind of a musician's musician. So.
Cool. Very, very cool.
So is it kind of like a sort of Richard Cheese kind of thing, like?
No, not really, because I mean Richard Cheese just does all lounge covers. This guy does a wide variety, anything from doo-wop to kind of like flapper music,
nice.
jazz combos. He changes it up for every song.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, like whatever's appropriate for the parody kind of thing, right?
yeah, or I'm sure probably whatever he feels like playing around in that day. So,
Yeah.
and it's really cool too because the videos, it's a bunch of people standing around in the room, and you'd think for a lot of that stuff for audio quality they would record it, master it, and then do a lip sync or whatever. No, they perform it completely live in the guy's apartment. So
Nice.
that's pretty cool too.
Very, very cool. John, what about you, sir?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that got announced recently is this kind of joint project between Korg, which is a company that makes a whole bunch of synthesizers, keyboards, and stuff like that, and these folk called Little Bits. And basically, what it is a whole bunch of little kind of single function microcontroller things or like widgets or whatever, but they're physical and they snap together with magnets. And what's really cool about the thing that this sort of joint project is you can basically build a modular synthesizer, which is like starting with an oscillator and then bringing that into like envelopes and amplifiers and things like that, and snap all these things together and mix and match them with all these other little bits kind of connectors. And it's like relatively cheap for how awesome it is. I think it's like $150 to pre-order it.
Mm-hmm.
And just totally blew me away. It looks fantastic.
So the kit is $150, or is it?
Yeah.
Just, okay. So and there comes. Oh, and I see there's. I'm looking at it now. There's 12 bits included in the kit.
Yeah. So you can basically mix and match how you want these things to be configured, and bring in all sorts of other little like interface type things. So you can get one that's kind of got this light sensor or this kind of pad area, so you can put your hand above it, sort of like a theremin. So I could just imagine like if I were a kid and like I had all these things where I could like add a motor to this thing, and then the motor could be connected to this motion sensor. And it's kind of like Lego Mindstorm in a way,
Right.
Except for it seems like it's kind of done away with the awkward Lego shoehorning,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean their tagline is "Make something that makes music." That's
Yeah.
really cool. I imagine from an education standpoint that would be really interesting. To try to get kids into.
We actually got my son something like this. It wasn't a synth. It was more just like a general like electronics kit where you learned circuits and things like that. But it was pretty cool too, and you could buy all the separate components with it like you can with this, which is that a trend I think I'm starting to see here lately, is a lot of products being more component based instead of just like one packaged finished thing. Like there's that one phone that that some people were working on recently too, where it was just like basically you just bought like little cards that were like add-on chips for the phone to make it do different things that you wanted, or upgrade the memory, so you don't have to buy a whole new phone every time.
Yeah, it's a block phone or something they're calling it, because it goes together like, there's everything. They're all modular stuff on the back. They just kind of click in and click out, because then there's a pin connector on the back of everything, and the phone itself is just a circuit board that makes all the connections. I don't remember what that's called.
Yeah, but I'm a fan of that trend because, I think there for a couple of years where we're getting too much, like, and I'm holding one right now, but like with the iPhone and stuff, to where it's one piece of thing, and once that piece of thing breaks, you need to get another piece of thing. Where I grew up, building my own computers and stuff, so I'm used to be able to just swap out a better part, or one that works or whatever. So I'm really glad to see companies like Korg here, and what was it, the Block phone or whatever it was.
They're called phone blocks, BLOKS.
Yeah. But it's seen people trying to go back more towards that kind of put it together yourself kind of mentality.
Yeah,
it's cheaper, remember, it's better for the environment.
Absolutely. I shared a Kickstarter on the show a few weeks ago called Little Robot Friends, which has since very successfully completed their goal. And it was the same idea. It's basically a small robot with a few sensors on a wood block. And then you're able to program it yourself. You're able to then have it interact with other robots. And they were using it as, not only is it fun for us geeky people, but it's a way to get really young people learning different programming languages. As part of the high school programs. And again, it's all part of this whole build it yourself, make it do what you want, program it to act how you want sort of thing. And I've been kicking myself that I didn't have the extra cash at the time to pick one up, because they're really cool.
So. Yeah, I think the fundamental difference is that, like, so many of these things are built to be appliances, right? So it's like a fixed architecture that solves these problems really elegantly. And other products are intended to be devices for play. And like the whole concept of modular synthesis, in fact, synthesizers really started off with modular synthesis, because you would have like an oscillator, and then you would put that oscillator, like that sine wave goes out into like an amplifier, the same as your stereo receiver is an amplifier, right? And then you've got an envelope that when you press a key on the keyboard will basically turn that knob for the volume according to whatever that envelope is, right? So that's how you get like that, right? And the beauty of this and all of this sort of approach is that you can just play, right? So you're not stuck to, well, my toaster only toast this way. It's great for if you want to make toast, but if you want to be creative, getting rid of some of those limitations, like being able to like use a pencil in all sorts of different ways, and it not being like you can only use a pencil if it's straight up and down in relation to the paper. Yeah. Right? Like get rid of all the wood on that thing, and then like pull the lead out and use it sideways, or cut a slit in the end and dip it in ink and use it as a nib. Right? Like there's all this stuff that you can do to be creative, and I hope my son is as excited about this stuff as I am, because if he is gonna have some good Christmases. I mean, we both will, but who am I kidding?
Yeah, no, really though.
That's the thing. That's the thing with some toys like that. You get them for your kid, but then when the kid goes to bed, you get to play along too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I watched a video the other day. I didn't watch the whole thing because it wasn't even time lapse, but it was basically guys unboxing and getting ready to put together the Lego Super Star Destroyer. The Executor. I would have so much fun with that. But at the same time, it looked daunting. Like I don't know how long it would actually take in terms of like raw man hours to do. But the pieces, it was just insane. Not to mention it's cost prohibitive. It's like $800 for the Super Star Destroyer. But I mean, it's over a meter long. It must weigh like 50 or 60 pounds. All that plastic snapped together. But yeah, it looks very, very cool. And
where do you even put that?
I don't anywhere. I mean, if I spent that much time on it, on my coffee table, damn it. Like,
You buy a house with a room just to display it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a really cool find, man. So that's littlebits.cc/kits/synthkit. We'll have the link in the show notes as well. Well, that's it. That is the end of the Citadel Cafe for tonight. We recorded the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on joelduggan.com/live. Music for the Citadel Cafe was composed by Kevin MacLeod, and of course the podcast is available on demand via iTunes and our website, thecitadelcafe.com. That is also where you can find the show notes for all the cool links and some of the embedded videos that we talked about tonight. You can email the show at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter with just the name of the show. Friends of the Citadel Cafe do their podcasting on Friday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on amove.tv. And those are the friends at the Gamers Inn. Jocelyn and Ryan break down their opinions of the latest gaming news and what they're playing. Visit gamersinpodcast.com or amove.tv/TGI for details. As I mentioned at the top of the show, my name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything I am up to online at joelduggan.com, links to social media and all that jazz, and my book, Starcrossed Volume 1, which is available in my web store. You can follow Bill, where Bill is about to tell you where you can follow him.
You can follow me anywhere, Joel. But for the people out there, you can follow me on Twitter at Bill Meeks. Actually, my Google Plus page, I got one of the fancy new URLs.
Ooh.
So it's google.com/plus Bill Meeks. And obviously, you can buy my book, Boy Den of Thieves, at dogboyadventures.com, and follow me in general at meeksmixedmedia.com. And
John, whereabout can people find you online?
I'm mostly on the Twitters at @underscorefunk. That's UNDERSCOREFUNK. I have a website, but it's kind of busted right now, and I am far too busy building websites for everyone else to fix it. So the cobbler's kids once again have no shoes. It's like this running joke, which it's terrible. So just hit me up on Twitter because that's where I am.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.
We don't talk about no pants. We just all silently agree that we're wearing no pants.
That's the first rule.
I'm just going to throw it out there that I am indeed wearing pants.
As am I. Sorry to burst everyone's
the bubble. Yeah.
So I'm a pantsless brotherhood of one then.
By the way, before I forget, if you're doing EPUB stuff, there's a program called Calibre that is really good at converting a whole bunch of different formats into EPUB, OpenPub, and whatnot. And also, you can actually unpack ebooks, and they're basically really simple HTML code and CSS.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
And all of the images and stuff like that are in there as well. So you can create stuff in InDesign, export that as EPUB, and then just kind of tweak it and double check things for all these different formats.
Nice. Well, that's going to help me because InDesign is where my book was made. That's how I did the layout for the book. So,
then just export it that way.
Yeah, because I was worried about, because I mean, I do want to do something cool for iBooks Author. One, just to kind of learn the program, but two, because I want to include like video and like swipeable comic strips where you can see like the rough drawing and then the inks and stuff. But
is there any like file size limitation on the multimedia content, or do you have to like link out to put it on your website or something? Or?
I'm not really sure, but the cool thing is that because it's digital and the resolution of the iPad, like I don't think it's going to be too bad. If I'm dealing with mostly stills, I don't think I would do video for every comic. I would probably just pick a couple of key things and maybe include a video or two. But I mean, I can also see putting in like, here's the audio voiceover for this one, or here's a link to a video, and just have those links as private, only published in the book and not accessible, anywhere else. I'm not sure how you set that up, but I know there are people that have done that for like online classes and stuff. So, Scott Robertson has done that with his book, I think.
What do you mean for video?
Yeah.
You can just publish those on YouTube as unlisted.
I'm good now. Okay.
In a world.
It's scripted.